All right, I'm going with Pastor's Lunch Break, which I don't think is going to be the best title, and we're probably going to change it. But this is our new call-in show where I drop in on some really long-suffering and awesome friends of ours at Pulpit who are in ministry and doing awesome stuff, and we interrupt our day in the middle of what we're doing. This is Broxton. Most of you probably know him if you're hanging out around our Twitter. Broxton, what are you doing today? I'm starting this in the middle of my lunch break here at the church. I currently am studying for James 1 for Sunday. So what are you up to?
Okay, so Friday's actually my day off, so I'm actually in the middle of mowing the yard. Um,
Nice.
so nothing ministry related per se, but it's also ministry because you have to take care of your yard. So
I'm butchering the C.S. Lewis quote, but in the sense that a man weeding a field of turnips is performing that unto the Lord, then he is performing an ecclesiastical function, says C.S. Lewis. So
amen,
this also is ministry,
amen.
especially to your wife. So you're a Friday. I'm a Monday guy. Convince
Yep.
me on Friday versus Monday.
Well, I don't have a super theological, spiritual argument for that, but I just think it's better to have a Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. So I
Okay,
think
that
it's
makes
better to
sense.
work.
That makes
I
sense.
think it's better to work Sunday to Thursday. I just like it better.
So you usually got one shot. That does make sense. I don't get the option because it's just the two of us here at the church, my pastor and
Yeah,
myself. And so we are flexed so that there can be someone in the office 5 days a week. So
yeah,
we've got, him in the office Monday through, I'm in the office Tuesday through
yeah.
Friday, and of course working Sunday and Wednesday night and all that. But I just always think it's funny the different people seem to have strong opinions on which one is better. And I don't think any of them are
Right.
theological. They're all just personal reasons, which is hilarious.
They're not.
I
Yeah, they're not.
personally like the post Sunday Monday where now I can just have a crash out day because we've had Sunday. That I always enjoy.
Yep.
But it does fragment. You've got your Saturday and then your Monday. So whatever. Um you've got lawn to do. I did lawn last night after work. We both live in Alabama, not to like location talks, but we both live in Alabama. So that means we're getting close to the end of lawn season, hopefully. Um,
Mercifully,
yeah,
hopefully.
no kidding. I'm ready to be done. So hopefully the grass will die and also all the ants will die that I've been fighting against. Some of you who live in different locations don't know the struggle, but we are being slowly overtaken by the jungle if we don't actively do something
Yeah,
about it every
it's
single day.
it's pretty rough. And with the hurricane last week,
Yeah,
it's been a couple weeks now, so that makes it even worse. But
right.
it's a
Yeah, the
blessing.
rain's not helping. It's not helping. All right. So the real reason that we're here is not just to chop it up. So what is the last coolest thing that you've been doing? Like it could be a Pulpit AI thing. That would be nice. That would be cool. That's what we're kind of here to talk about. But just like last cool, awesome ministry thing that you put together where you're just like, this is something really new that I haven't really messed with or done before.
Okay, so this is my first time on like one of your pulpit podcasts, but we recorded your podcast, Infinite Dominion, a few weeks ago, yet to be released, and we talked about it on that episode. So I'll just share it here. Like we have a daily devotion that our pastor's done on television as part of our television ministry locally for like 20 years. But recently, over the last 6 months or so, I've been trying to incorporate his sermon content into that to make his sermons go further, which is what Pulpit AI is all about. Um,
Right.
and so it's gone through some different iterations with Pulpit. Like at first, I started using like my sermon notes, my personal sermon notes that I take listening to his sermon, combining it with his transcript, and then like the devotion outputs that Pulpit spits out, and trying to like meld everything together. And that worked okay. I like it okay. I think it has a purpose. But now, recently, like we filmed this week, actually, we filmed 15 at a time. And for these last 15, I've basically just been like taking his transcript, putting it back into Pulpit, and saying, I'm writing a 300-word devotion based on this transcript. Can you basically take out everything that's, filler, fluff, or whatever? Keep as much of the original content as possible and keep it under 300 words. And it's actually doing really well because, like I said, there's different uses. There's a use case for what Pulpit's spitting out, I think, and I'm working through different ways to still use that too. But I'm finding that like what it's generating for me is like a perfect transcript of each sermon point he's giving, fit into 300-word devotion. And so people on television and on our Facebook page are hearing sermon points like months after the sermon was preached, but they have no idea that it was a sermon. Um,
So what are you? So okay, so this is really interesting. So you've got existing sermons that are just part of your archive from, I assume, some time ago.
the last
You're
series that
pulling
he did.
out, so you're pulling out that transcript that you have of his sermon, which I guess so you can load just the sermon. Are you just so you're just loading an MP4 or an MP3 into Pulpit? You're getting the transcript out, right?
Yep.
And then you're asking it in the chat to condense that transcript down into something. And so what are you doing with that condensed version then? Is that going out as like an email, or is that like?
So it's right now it's just for the devotions that we're filming. So like what we do 15 at a time. And the reason it's 15 at a time and the reason it's 300 words is because the start, like I said, this was originally a television ministry piece of media. And so like we have a 3.5 minute time block on local television. So we're limited to a certain amount of words. Um, and so during COVID, we started producing all of those in-house rather than going to our local TV studio. And so what I'm doing with them now is basically here's the prompt that I need, and here's what Pulpit spits back out. And what I do is I just put it into a script, and he reads it as part of what we're doing. And so it normally starts out with a passage, and so a lot of times it's whatever passage was from that sermon point. And if that one doesn't really fit, then I just go like to something related to it or something else that he might have mentioned in the sermon. And then
So
he,
this way, instead of trying to generate this whole separate devotional series, which is a cool thing to do,
mhm,
to have a devotional series that people can see on a different channel, that's like we've done that before on YouTube and stuff. But what we had to do is we had to do really tiny ones, like it's got to be a proverb, so that we can just pretty much do it
yeah,
like riffing into the camera and then kind of talking through it. Maybe here's a cross reference or something, which worked because it was really short. But you're actually using this. You're able to do, okay, it's now a devotional series, but it's also connected to the work, the tens of hours he's put into every
right,
single one of those sermons,
right,
as opposed to just having to be a whole separate workflow that he's got to do to
right,
create this other devotional content.
yep,
And now
yep,
he's just got a script that he can read off for visual media or whatever,
yep,
which you could repurpose those for like YouTube and stuff too.
yeah. And
Okay, this is interesting.
that's what I'm looking at doing right now. So it started out as like, okay, proof of concept, is this going to work? And like actually last week, uh, not last week, the last time we filmed, he said, you know, these flow a lot. He said, I'm not just saying it because I preached this, but these flow a lot better. He said, these flow a lot better than what we used to do. What we used to use was like we subscribe, the church subscribes to like this service. I don't remember what it's called, but they send us printed devotional books for like per quarter. And we hand them out as part of our, you know, Sunday school ministry and stuff. And so we used to do those, just like backlogs of those. And essentially what those were, I think, were also other pastors' sermons, kind of, you know,
Oh, of course.
that they work into a devotional series. Um, but now it
Welcome
works
to
a lot,
ministry media. It's
right?
sermons all the way down.
Yeah,
It's,
right. So, but now he was like, it flows so much easier because like our people have already heard this. But the blessing of the way that he does his sermon series, like the last one, he did a sermon series on purpose. And so he started it in January and it went through June. He was like, he had sabbatical in July and then he came back. So like, I'm still working through processing all of those into our devotions, but like people don't, they're getting aired and posted so long after the sermon that it's like, I don't know if anybody recognizes it. And that's okay. Like, that's kind of what I want too, is like it to feel familiar, but also kind of fresh at the same time. And so, for,
100%. Well, and the other beauty for that is like instead of bringing in, and this is something that we hammer, I hammer, I might be the main evangelist for this because I'm pretty obsessed with the idea, is that like instead of bringing in, and there's nothing the matter with outside resources, love outside resources, they're fine, but instead of bringing in an outside resource from somebody who's not connected to your congregation, not spending all of his time thinking about praying for, moved by the Holy Spirit to do specific things in terms of the sermon or in terms of what he's doing, right? That's your pastor's job. That's what he's doing all the time. But then you're bringing in this outside devotional content as like, and this will be great too. And it will, right? God's word doesn't return void. I'm not worried about that.
right,
But I think what's hilarious to me is that in a sense, having that, ability for an AI summary is allowing for a much more human connection with
Yeah.
your congregation and all the other people that are listening to these, because it's actually the material that the Lord put on his heart to this time, to this occasion, to this group of people in this setting, in this context, and you're just able to repurpose it in a way that's
Yeah.
effectively possible for you. I imagine that would be super difficult if you were the one having to go back through and write a 300-word summary for each of these sermons. Like that would be
Yeah.
probably a little
Yeah.
bit more of a
Because
challenging time
I
thing.
had to try it that way before Pulpit AI. So, and like
Right, right,
it took so much longer because it was like, listen to the sermon. Obviously, I want to do that anyway, but listen to the sermon, take my own notes, but take pretty detailed notes in order to adapt that into a devotion. But now it's a lot easier because it's like just repurpose the transcript. And like I said,
right.
we're doing it for the television thing first, and that's really its first purpose. But recently, I've started like over the last set we did. I was like, what's a good way to put this in short form, like on social media content that doesn't appear like because I'll be honest with you, like it's been on television for so long that it does at first give off that like established Southern Baptist Church television ministry vibe.
Yeah, TV vibes. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, for sure, for
And
sure.
so I need to
Yeah, different.
repurpose it for social media, but I didn't necessarily want to go straight to video. So for the last 2 weeks, I've tried Instagram carousels. And so like I just, pick a carousel template from Canva or whatever and kind of edit it a little bit. And it's just the text of the devotion.
Carousels are great for that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so now I'm like, okay, this works really good. But after this set of 15 that we filmed this week, what I'm going to do, because I also cut up like, we haven't really put a lot of energy in TikTok. It's kind of one of those things that's like, I want to do it, but even I am a little bit too old to like really get TikTok and I'm only 27. Um,
The acceptance is setting in, Broxton.
right, right. But I still feel like we should try something. And so, but I want to try something other than sermon clips. And so I was like, maybe this would be a good thing too. So I tried editing a couple of these devotions into TikTok format, and like it actually did extremely well. And so it was like, and I know that TikTok is an audience that is 100% unfamiliar with our church. And so they're going to have no concept
Right.
whatsoever of I've seen this on TV at 7:30 in the morning. Um,
Point too that there's a sense in which sermon clips are kind of very unfamiliar to the terrain of TikTok.
yeah,
Like that's not what, but a one-to-one talking head, like I'm just talking to you about, even if it's going to
yeah,
be scriptural or whatever, that's much more similar to what they're seeing.
yep,
And that's a good point, that like you don't want to be naive to the fact that like if you're showing up in a room and you're dressed weird and acting weird for that room, you're not going to have a very good
yeah,
reaction. We've joked for the longest time. We've been, my pastor and I have been working on what could we do on Twitch,
yeah,
and we have not figured anything out yet. Our latest iteration is, well, we need to do pastors play blank,
yeah,
right? Where just like the two of us we'll just get a stream rig and like play some game and like just joke and laugh about like some other thing too at the same time, theology or some current events thing or whatever, which I think is the closest thing you can get. But like there's a lot of people I think would look at that space and be like, oh, well, just stream yourself talking. It's like, that's not what it is, or it is, but when you stream yourself talking on Twitch, it's very different from what you're thinking, right?
yeah,
So I think you do have to be a little bit more nimble and like look at the thing and adapt yourself to it a little. But that devotion idea, I honestly hadn't thought about that, using that as the way into like short video rather than just clips,
yeah, yeah,
which would be super easy to do.
yeah.
Yeah,
And we're going to repurpose it. I'm just figuring out the best way to manage it and workflow it. But like you mentioned email and stuff like that. Ideally, perfect world, I figure out a good workflow for it. He finishes a sermon series. We do, however many devotions we can get from it in this format. But then I also want, like I said, we're limited to 300 words for the television block, and it makes sense for like social media clips. But long
right.
term, I would love to come back to the outputs that Pulpit spits out and add some of that into it, um, and meld those together and do things like an opt-in email devotional posted on our blog.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like, I really want to try to get on YouVersion because I think that that's like a major outreach tool too, but it's not as easy.
Yeah.
Like the last time I checked, they weren't accepting content partners, unless you're like a mega church and you've got a book deal and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Mm.
so, but I think that would be a good outreach thing too, because I feel like obviously a lot of Christians use YouVersion, but I think a lot of people that discover the Bible for the first time will go to a YouVersion, like, hey, let me try these Bible plans. Well, if I can create like 10, take one sermon series that, our pastor does like 20-part series or whatever, and he's got one theme for that series that is purpose. Okay, but he talked about stewardship on purpose. He talked about praying on purpose. He talked about forgiving on purpose. Well, you can create a 5 to 10 day reading plan on YouVersion out of that,
Yeah.
and somebody on YouVersion has no idea until they complete the plan that it was a sermon series, and that's their first introduction to your church. So that's what
Or
I
even if you don't do it on YouVersion, even if you don't do it on YouVersion, throw it up as like your click to, it's your lead magnet
right,
basically. Like
right,
here's a free, opt-in thing that somebody could get if they're breezing through one of your social channels and they are not really familiar with any of
yep,
this stuff and they're on TikTok or whatever. Like you said, that's another thing we got to realize is that we've got so many people that are like intersecting with the church or
yep,
intersecting with the Bible, but they're not at all, like they've got no idea what's going on. So being aware that that's actually like you even said, an app like YouVersion is a missions field because a lot of people are just downloading this and being like, oh, I guess I'm
yeah,
going to check this out now.
yep.
That's sweet. All right. Well, I've got a hard cap on this. We're number one because I literally I have to teach Sunday, dude. So you got to let me go.
Okay,
But I really appreciate you, man. We're going to do this more often. I just want to have fun and get to be picking the brains of the guys that are the whatever you want to call it, the ninjas, the power users, the obsessively egghead like people
yeah,
that are just doing really really cool stuff with this. I want to be talking to you. I want to be talking to Pastor Chad. If you guys are listening to this and you're saying, oh, pick me, and you've got some really cool thing you're doing and you want to show off, please hit this and I will absolutely give you a call and bother you on your lunch break. Thanks so much, Broxton. You have yourself a great rest of your day.
appreciate it, man. Have a good weekend.
Awesome, man. Talk to you. Bye.